Hi, today I'm going to show you how to reduce the number of variables that you are using in your Wized and Webflow project. So when you're building web applications in Wized, one important thing is not having it go very clunky. I think when I build things in Wized, I'm super excited building them, but then when I have to do updates, I'm like, oh, what did I do there? And I had to learn this a few times really in a hard way, where maintaining that in Wized was not ideal because I didn't know certain things about the principles of arrays, of variables when I did those things. So now after asking experts and ChatGPT and all of that, I finally found a wonderful solution how to reduce the amount of variables that you have in your Wiz project. And I hope that sharing this with you is helpful. So let's get to the setup how I would normally did it, or how I would normally do it. I would just have variable 1, variable 2, variable 3. When I count up here, this counts up. When I count up here, this counts up. And when I count up here, this counts up. And now it would be great if this would be 10. That would be so smooth. Like, okay, better. Wonderful. So I asked the Wiz team, and Alex told me, actually, you can do this in an object, which I didn't know. Yeah, I was doing it wrong the whole time. So we can save 3 actions because I consider this thing as a component. When we want to develop web applications, I think we have to get rid of thinking this are different things. We have to more thinking of this is one component with multiple elements. So I can just have those values that I store in here in one variable for this component. And this is what we're going to do right here. Let's actually call this counter component, right? Component. And now we need to create an object. So basically, I have count 1 with a return of 0, and I'll just count up. I made a whole video on that. So if you want to figure out how to count up, I would highly recommend you to watch the video in the video description. But it's just return 1 on all of those variables. And when I count up, I'm just adding +1 to the current state in here. Now, we don't need to have 3 variables, so we can just get rid of all of those 3. Count 1, 2, 3. We can get rid of them. Let's refresh the page. Now it will not work because we have to define the object. So I have this variable called counter component, and I'm going to return. So I'm going to write return. I'm going to create an object. So we're going to take this curly braces in here, and now I will just create multiple objects in here, right? So let's create 3 objects, right? We have 3 objects. Now all of the sudden, or actually, we don't want to do an array. No, this is wrong. Excuse me. We just want to define like the paths in here. So I'm going to write, for example, counter 1, and we have to put this in quotes, counter 1, and I'm going to give this a value of 0, right? This is a start value of 0. Then I'm going to give this a comma, and I'm going to write counter 2, and I'm going to give this a value of 0, right? And I'm going to do the same thing for counter 3, just like that. Here you go. Wonderful. Here you go. So now I have my my object, right? And let's just make this nice. Okay, perfect. That's clean. And I just want to have this like this. Now I can base all those different states, all those different elements inside my component within one variable, right? And I don't have 3 variables, and I'm not going to make this complex. I would recommend when you build those things to really think in components and see how can I structure the way the data is being handled to work within within components. This is what Wized is doing too with the whole object they're going to give you for your state variables. But now we need to update some things, right? So for the counter 1, I don't want to have v.count1 plus 1. I want to now base this on v dot counter component dot count 1. And actually, did I do the run? Oh, it's counter component dot counter 1, and this should do the thing, right? And here you go. So I want to write it like this, right? So I'm going to target the object that contains my sub-variables. This is also, by the way, what Wized is doing, because you're writing v dot. V is a global object containing my variables, and now my variables inside my variables. So we have this object, this is Wized, and I'm going to do the same principle as Wized is doing that initially to provide their core functionality within what Wized is providing me here. And this is how I'm going to have that working here. And now I'm just going to, actually I have to base that on here, and, oh, I can't, let's see. Can I do sub? I can't do that. So I have to do a run function, actually. Because now Wized doesn't give us the functionality to, as far as I can see it at least, to define the variables in here using their set variable. We need to do a run function, and we need to just have the set as a run function. That will work. Okay, so here we go. We have this working as a run function now. Now I'm going to go to the button 2, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm just going to target counter 2, which is in my object in here. I have counter 1, counter 2, counter 3, just like that. And same principle for this one. And I'm going to also have to remove this from set variable to run function. Here you go. And it is working. Wonderful. Now if I'm going to go to 3, I'm going to change this to run function. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to counter v all our Wized variables, then our variable of counter component. And in here, we have multiple sub-variables. Let's call them sub-variables. Counter 1, counter 2, counter 3. And we want to target counter 3 right here. Just like that. And it is working. Now, the cool thing is I can base the set text just simply by going to do v.counterComponent dot counter 1, just like that. And you see I have to set as 0. And now if I'm going to click on here, let's just make sure to refresh that. It should work, but for some reason it's not. So let's see what's going on here. I'm going to have this plus 1, v.counter.component plus 1, and that should always count up. So now I have the value in here of v.counterComponent.counter1. So why is this not working? That's interesting. Let's look into here. I'm going to return it like this, and I would be updating the values. So it technically should work if I'm thinking this through here. We have this, right? If I would go, oh, that's my issue. I cannot just do counter.1. I have to do something like this. I have to do v.counter equals v.counter.1, and now here we're counting up. And then this is actually my mistake. Then I don't even need to do this. Oh no, actually I do, because I cannot sub-base those variables. My idea would be, let's just go to set variable and then just define the item, but I cannot set keys of the objects in the set variable because this is very limited in Wized. So we have to do a little bit of code here. So yeah, let's just do v.counterComponent.counter1, which is this part, will equal the current value of v.counterComponent.counter1, which is 0, plus 1, and this should then count up. Here you go. Wonderful. And it should work. Look at that. It's working. Wonderful. So now we just have to update my little mistake that we did in Wized here. And Wized is really a wonderful and powerful tool. All errors that occur here are my errors. But on click, I'm going to do v.counter.component equals v.counter.component .counter plus 1. That should work. And now for the 2, we also need to set it based on the value on the new one, which is counter. And look at that. Even Wized has its native feature that is suggesting me the mini sub paths, the sub variables here. So I can also work fully natively with that and stay organized. Look at that. Here you go. Now we need to do the same thing for the third version. I'm just going to have, and I need to update this to 3, just like that. Here you go. And now we want to update the third text too to the sub variable. Let's call them sub variables for now. And here you go. I have the same functionality as before, but I'm saving variables. I only have this in one variable. There was, of course, a little bit trial and error here to figure this out. But I think it's also a wonderful thing that you don't need to know, and we didn't use ChatGPT for this. Like, this was all common sense. You don't need to be an expert to figure yourself around Wized. Like, I didn't know how to do that before I had the idea. I wanted to do it like this. I didn't know how to do it. I just went into Wized, okay, I tried it 2 or 3 times. It didn't seem to work. I'll continue that way until it works. And because Wized is such an easy to use environment, it will work. I just have to put maybe a little bit more effort, and I have to make a game out of that. Okay, it doesn't work like this. Okay, now let's try it like this. And oh, no, this doesn't work. Okay, let's try this. Because you have to do mistakes. Sometimes you take the wrong thing. It's a mistake. Yeah, you forget the break in there. It's a mistake. You take the wrong thing. Next time you learn out of that, and then you take the right thing. And I think this is really where web development and the power of Wized is, because you just have to take the wrong thing to learn how to take the right thing, and all of a sudden you're a web app developer. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was entertaining and that you also learned something from it. Thank you so much for all your wonderful support, for all your wonderful messages. I really appreciate that. And see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.